Good morning. Ira Epstein with your morning flash update, and this update is for Monday, the 9th of October, 2023. Well, you all know about Israel, the invasion. You know that this morning, if you're just waking up and not aware of it, both Tel Aviv and Jerusalem are being attacked by rockets, missiles, whatever the Hamas want to launch at them. There's now over 4,000 known that have taken place. Probably that's a low number. Israel keeps using their Iron Dome system to shoot it down. And you'd wonder, are they going to run out of arms for that? Well, the U.S. keeps its largest amount of supplies for that in Israel, under the name U.S. In addition, under President Obama, there were certain monies given to Israel to protect itself that can be drawn on. The monies are there. Even without Congress, with the House Speaker yet in place to get more funds, they're there. Everything I read points to that, so I doubt that's the case. What you do know is over the weekend they were attacked. Today, by the way, is the Indigenous People holiday in the United States, and for many of us, Columbus Day. I celebrate both. I like Columbus, but I understand what these people are angry about. Let's face it, when you came over from Spain, you brought disease, and that disease wiped out how many of the native population? Terrible. I wonder about it when the United States is going into space and will encounter life of some form. What do we do to it if we get them ill? Same thing. In Israel, the war has expanded, as I said, to Tel Aviv and Jerusalem in terms of the shelling. Israel says it took them 48 hours to take control of the Gaza Strip. Why is beyond me. Why Israel was caught with its pants down is beyond me. It goes on and on. That'll be later. 300,000 reservists have now been called up. I pray Israel doesn't take those forces and go into the city of Gaza. Rather, I think they can use their air might, their artillery shells, and level all the areas they have to level, telling the population ahead of time, at noon, Block 34 is going down. At 12:30, Block 35. At 1 o'clock, Block 36. And we will resume at 2 o'clock, and we will take down Blocks 8, 10, 12, and we will keep going. They have shut off the water, the food, the power, everything to the area. So now it's an old-fashioned siege, where instead of launching, if you will, remember the old days, the cannonballs? Now it's going to be a different type of might. Israel be very wise not to fight the land game there. They are waiting for them. Doesn't take a military genius to see this was planned out, all the tunnels underneath, all the booby traps, waiting to get them into those narrow corridors in that city. Forget it. Take the city down is probably what some in the military are saying. I'm no military strategist. I see that, and I see an easy way to do it, being as humanitarian as you possibly can be under the circumstance. I want to use the word, under the circumstance. So, as I look at all this, what's the impact on the markets? Now, cold, hard fact, it's typically fleeting. Very fleeting. It rarely has a lasting impact. It will take, for it to be more than that, not only proof of Iran doing something, but just like with Russia, what do you do on the next step once you prove it, all right? The U.S. doesn't want to get into a nuclear war. We put on all these sanctions, we turn another eye, and Iran's producing all the oil at once. It's the wild child in the Middle East. How you control them is you send in your naval carrier group, as we have done. You make your threats. You contain them as best as you can, and you let Israel handle its problems the way it's typically done it. Just how it's going to play out. As for the 130 hostages, it's sad, but human life is human life. We want them back, but you don't send in 300,000 soldiers for 130 people. That's number one. They're buried away underground somewhere, but believe it or not, they're probably safe. They're bargaining chips, or they're terror chips to put on TV, slaughter them, do whatever you're going to do with them, or at the end of the day, negotiate a settlement in some manner. Whatever they are, this is a whole different game. Israel has got to be livid They're saying 700 people dead. I'm sure it's more than that. They're still fighting. It's got to be more than that. That is their equivalent of a 9/11. So as you understand what goes on in that part of the world, you've got to be very careful. Is it a time for Americans to go to that part of the world? My advice would be travel advisory, strong travel advisory against. So as the markets are opening, you're starting to get a lift back off the lows. I wanted to talk through that. The gold seems to me that it got, and silver, way too high. What I call the early money people, they buy the rally thinking it's just going to keep going. I've been around this 50 some odd years. No, that's not typically what happens. Same in the dollar. You might probably get a little bit more support back in these markets. You can't really judge the bonds and the notes today. Cash markets are closed, hard to call it. Tomorrow you have a huge grain reports coming. I think it's tomorrow, where we get the idea of final numbers on bushels per acre, how many acres, ideas on all that will be thrown around. And as you can see in the energy, you've already sold off after you went up to 89. You realize that was almost $5 higher a barrel, and you're a little more reality settling in. I'm not saying they have to go lower. I'm saying they're not worth a crazy, crazy war bid at this point in time. And obviously, the peace that we were hoping between Saudi Arabia, the United States, and Israel, I think you're going to see that's on pause for a long time to come now. You got to get through all this. So got to get through all that. Saudi Arabia doesn't need a problem with its neighbors, and as much as it wouldn't like to set up relations, I think they're on pause for a fair amount of time. So I'll talk to you at the end of the day, but before I do so, I've got to tell you, you have one report left to see today. That is the end of my special report. Comes off, I